Errol is a young boy who lives in a fantasy world where everyone has a blessing in the form of a class given to them by their goddess. This class decides what they are going to become when they grow up, and it is revealed to them when they turn 10 years old. Today is Errol's big day since he just turned 10 and is going to be assigned a new class. His parents and his sister are excited at the prospect, fantasizing what kind of cool class will Errol get. But he himself looks uninterested in this entire system. After having breakfast, they all quickly move towards the church where a priest stands near an altar, touching underage boys, which is a universal thing in every world, I guess. He starts telling each kid what is going to be their class, as some become blacksmiths and some become chefs. Errol's sister tells him that classes are also influenced by what your parents' classes are, so he is probably going to get something really cool. When Errol's number comes, he walks up to the priest, while everyone starts mumbling excitedly amongst themselves about what kind of legendary class will this kid get, since his mother is a sword saint and his father is an archmage. The priest himself is excited at the opportunity to touch another boy, but when he presses Errol's forehead, it confuses him, since nothing happens. He finally looks down at Errol in pity and tells him that he was born without a class. A couple days pass by, and Errol's parents try to raise his spirits by telling him that he doesn't need to worry about getting a job, and he can always live in their basement forever. But Errol isn't really worried about himself. He tells his family that he is not depressed, claiming that he has been practicing the art of swordsmanship since he was a child. He has been honing his skills day in and day out, and of course it would have been much easier for him to advance if he got the swordsman class. But even without it, he can make his way into the world based on the sheer amount of hard training he has done with his overpowered mom. His family is relieved by this, while he walks off to spend some time alone when he overhears a bunch of noise coming from the training ground. There he notices two guys sparring with each other, and even though their basics seem to be weak, just getting blessed with the swordsman class seems enough to make them capable fighters. They notice Errol watching them and ask why he is standing here. Errol replies that he came here to practice, which makes them laugh. They claim that a classless guy can never spar with an actual swordsman and demonstrate their abilities by hacking at each other with their swords. Errol, however, is not impressed and asks whether they would like to spar with him. The boys think that Errol must be joking, but agree for a match. Before the match could start though, the boy asks Errol whether he has divine protection at least. Unlike the classes, everyone is born with divine protection from birth, which is like a barrier which protects them from harm, but it can run out or be broken by someone who is much stronger than them. Errol nods that he has the protection, which means that the boy can now go all out on him without the fear of killing him. Errol, however, tells him that he doesn't need divine protection to beat brats like him, which enrages the boy, who runs at Errol and swings his sword hard. Errol easily manages to parry the attack, which shocks the brat, who starts swinging his swords wildly at him. But Errol manages to block and deflect every single attack thrown at him. The boy starts getting desperate, and his friend jumps in from the back to take Errol down, but he is too quick and jumps out of the way in time. He realizes that compared to his mom, these boys are nothing in front of him, so 2-on-1 might make for a better match. With that, he rushes towards them and knocks one of the boys out with a pommel to the chin, while the other boy loses his balance after tripping over his friend and gets knocked down. They both start crying about unfairness like sore losers, when suddenly a red-haired boy enters the ring and tells both the idiots to shut their mouths up, as if this was a battlefield. They would have been dead already. Errol doesn't recognize him, but the red-haired boy seems to know him as he walks straight up to him and challenges him to a duel. He claims that Errol only managed to defeat these two chumps because he has got some innate ability from her mother, the Sword Saint, but since he is a classless loser, he will never be able to stand in front of someone with a class as well as basic training. The red-haired boy finally tells them that he is the son of Captain Evans, the leader of the village guards. Errol suddenly remembers the captain when he came to his mother for help, but the boy doesn't look even remotely similar to the rugged man he saw. The boy wails about how Errol's mother is always considered the strongest, even though his father is also an expert swordsman, so finally, to show whose family is better, he is going to defeat Errol in a fight. They both take their positions and finally the match starts. The red-haired boy immediately presses the attack, trying to land a winning blow as soon as possible, but Errol has been practicing with his mom forever and has a very tight defense as well. Their speed is impressive as they zip through the training ground attacking each other, which leaves the two brats stunned on the ground. Errol realizes that even though the red-haired boy is much stronger than the other two idiots, he is using his anger to fight, which is making him sloppy. Errol tries to look for an opening before lunging in, but the red-haired boy is ready for that and uses his special aerial slashes. Errol manages to block one, but the other one hits him in the chest, knocking him to the ground. Errol is taken by surprise and asks what kind of trick was that. But the red-haired boy claims that it's a skill which a classless loser like him can never learn. A couple of days have passed by since that loss, but a new fire has been lit inside Errol. He goes inside the forest with his sword and starts practicing on his own on a dummy target, and after countless tries, he finally manages to replicate the twin slash which defeated him last time. Before he could even celebrate though, a goblin ambushes him by jumping out of the bushes, but it is not a match for him, since Errol turns around, unleashing his twin slash technique, which immediately drops the goblin to the ground. He feels excited about his newly learned technique when suddenly a huge roar erupts from deep within the forest which shakes Errol to the core. He immediately decides to run back to the village and alert the guards, but he overhears the shout of a boy as well, which stops him in his tracks. He realizes that the boy might be in trouble, and it will be too late till the guards arrive, so he decides to go into the forest himself. He walks quietly for a bit, when he finally spots an injured boy, who turns out to be the same red-haired guy who defeated him in training. The boy looks thoroughly beaten as he bleeds from all over his body, holding the sword up towards his enemy, who turns out to be a massive hobgoblin. Even Errol has never seen one in real life, since they never come near the village. He wonders whether he should run for help, since he doesn't know whether he is strong enough to defeat the monster, but he realizes that the red-haired boy would die for certain if he leaves. Errol finally makes up his mind and sneaks behind the hobgoblin, and just before the monster could finish the red-haired boy off, Errol unleashes a strong twin strike which slashes through the goblin, killing him immediately. The boy is shocked to see the hobgoblin dead on the floor, but more than that, he is shocked at the fact that Errol managed to use an attack which he only learned after years of training and the boost from his class. Errol gives the boy some holy water for recovery, and immediately after, the boy asks Errol how he managed to do that, and Errol replies that his attack has nothing to do with having a class, as anyone with enough skill, speed, and power can replicate it. He explains that after losing to his twin slashes before, Errol analyzed it closely and practiced again and again to understand the basics, so now he can modulate the attack however he wants. The boy is still not convinced and challenges Errol to a match, which is gladly accepted. They both stand in front of each other and use their abilities at the same time. To the boy's surprise, not only did Errol manage to successfully block his slash, but he also added a third slash which hits the boy and knocks him to the floor. The captain's son is furious, but Errol explains that he isn't bound by any skill which has limitations, so his only limit is his power and skill, which means he can add as many slashes as he wants if he is good enough. The boy gets back on his feet and engages in another quick battle, but this time again he gets hit by the third slash, stronger than before. He gets knocked to the ground once again as Errol claims the victory and walks off. 5 whole years pass by since that day, and Arfinalil decides to leave on a journey to Brescia, the kingdom known for its swordsmanship. Both his mother as well as Captain Evans got their training from Brescia, and Errol wants to be the best of the best just like them. On his way, he is accompanied by a couple of strangers, 2 of them being swordsmen of a high caliber. The guy has the barbarian class, whereas the woman is known for her dual-wielding class. Both of them want to hone their skills in Brescia as well, but they can't seem to get along and are always at each other's throat. The cart driver tells them to settle down as all of them are going to the same location, but the man is too much of a misogynist and wants to send the woman back to the kitchen. Before they can argue more, however, the cart driver shouts at them to get their swords ready as they have got trouble. Errol calmly looks up and spots a horde of orcs alongside their huge leader blocking their way, with no intentions of letting them leave with their lives. 2 of the kids in the cart get scared and ask the barbarian guy to save them, but the barbarian, true to her name, is a total jerk and a coward, who claims that he is not willing to put his life on the line for someone else and jumps from the cart before running away. The woman follows him, claiming that everyone is on their own in this world. The cart driver gets worried, wondering whether he can outrun the horde with his cart and the passengers. But before he could do anything, Errol climbs down the cart without a single word and starts moving towards the monsters. The driver tells him to back off and run for his life, but Errol simply ignores him before dashing towards the first orc and stabbing it in the heart. The driver is shocked by his incredible speed and accuracy, while Errol simply uses instant transmission and keeps disappearing and appearing in front of the orc, taking them down one by one. Unfortunately though, he gets surrounded by a bunch of orcs on all sides, which means that he can't really use his dash skill anymore. But to the driver's surprise, Errol uses a legendary trick known as the Blade Dance, where he spins around like an idiot, cutting everyone down all at once. The cart driver doesn't understand how Errol can use that skill, since it is only used by the swordsmen with the Sword Princess class, and they are always women. Errol, however, isn't bound by the gender norms, as he wants to be the part of the LGHDTV community, so he runs towards the orc leader, dodging its attack expertly before jumping on top of him and burying his sword deep within the orc's skull, killing it immediately. He finally returns back towards the shocked driver and tells him to continue the journey to Brescia. While one of the kids asks what class he belongs to, he simply replies that he doesn't have any class, which completely shocks everyone. He remembers how 5 years ago, when he showed his mother the new twin blade skill he learnt, she thought that she was imagining things, but when Errol told her that he is training to replicate any skill he sees, she is beyond overjoyed and promised to teach him all of the skills used by the Sword Princess class. Back in the present, he is woken up by the driver who tells him that they have reached Brescia, the land of swords. Errol climbs down the cart and witnesses the town center flooded by people with swords strapped to their waists. Errol turns towards the driver and asks whether he is an advanced level swordsman. At first, the driver claims that he is just a cart driver, but Errol knows that only good swordsmen can identify the moves he was pulling on the spot. The cart driver admits that he is from the Holy Knights class, which is a pretty good class, but he gets bored of fighting so much, so he prefers to sometimes kick back and relax while pretending to be a normal driver. The Holy Knight realizes that this is probably Errol's first time in the city and tells him that he needs to find a guild for himself first, as without a guild he won't be able to fight in any tournaments. And in this city, fighting and winning the tourneys is the main way swordsmen prove their worth and earn money. Errol replies that he doesn't care about the money, but he wants to fight the strongest swordsman this place has to offer him. The driver tells him to be wary of toxic corporate guilds, as they can suck your soul and not in a good way. With that, the driver turns back and leaves, while Errol moves into the city, looking at all the different people announcing their guilds, hiring people and swordsmen getting in line to try their luck for the better guilds. On the way, he ends up bumping into a blonde loli who immediately latches onto him like Headless, telling him that she is the member of a famous guild and wants him to join them. Errol is immediately wary of her, since she seems very desperate for members, so he refuses. The loli, however, doesn't leave him alone and keeps pestering him to join their guild again and again, but Errol is not a simp and keeps refusing. He asks her what is the strongest guild here, and begrudgingly replies that the Shadowblade Guild is one of the strongest right now since it has 8 class as swordsmen. He asks her for the directions and immediately moves towards the guild. He gets stopped on the way by the guard who directs him towards the reception for the test. In the reception, he finds a huge line of budding swordsmen willing to try their luck to enter the famous guild, which excites Errol as well, who wonders what kind of amazing people he would have to fight against. But when his chance comes to register, the receptionist laughs at him for being a classless loser, claiming that only people with an advanced swordsman class can apply for the guild trials. Errol claims that he is sure he can pass their trial, but the receptionist refuses to register him. Saddened by this, he decides to leave when he spots 3 of the ranked swordsmen entering the hall, who are immediately treated like celebrities. He doesn't really care much about the theatrics though, and immediately turns towards other guilds, but one by one, he gets rejected by all of them on the basis of him not having a class. Tired, he goes back into the city, taking out the letter his mother gave him and told him to find her old guild, since they will surely help her find something. He wonders whether his mom knew that he would have this much trouble, but he is thankful nonetheless. Before he can even read the letter though, the blonde loli latches onto him once again, claiming that they are still ready to take him in, but Errol refuses again. She literally starts begging him to join the guild, telling him to do it as a charity, and points at a beautiful guild house, claiming that it's her guild. This surprises Errol a little, but the loli replies that their guild known as the Dragonfang used to be the best in the country for a very long time, but lately it's gone to shit and currently they are the weakest, but she wants to bring it back up to its former glory. The name Dragon Fang suddenly rings a bell as he remembers that his mom once told him about the leader of her guild who was a dual-wielding swordsman who named the guild Dragon Fang after his special move. He quickly takes out the letter to look for the name, and it in fact is the guild that his mom was talking about. He decides to go in with her, which makes her very happy. But the moment they enter the room, he finds an old drunk man with only one arm on the couch. The man tells Errol to go somewhere else since this guild is doomed and walks off, while the lowly tells him that he is her father, who used to be the second best swordsman of the city. But ever since losing his arm, he has never been the same. Errol, however, surprises her by saying that he wants to join the guild. This makes the lowly really happy, and she quickly drafts up an agreement, which Errol fills up and hands it back to her. She reads it before asking why he left the class column blank. That's when Errol replies that it's because he has no class. The lowly snaps and gets a sword out, claiming that she thought he might be an advanced class swordsman since he was acting so hard to get. But before she could say any more, the door opens and a red-haired beauty named Ray enters the room. The lowly immediately runs towards her, crying that this classless idiot deceived her into joining the guild. This gets Ray's immediate attention, and she looks towards Errol, claiming that she never thought she would see him here. Errol is confused and asks how she knows him, and Ray looks surprised, claiming that they were from the same village and trained together. That still doesn't ring a bell, but finally he realizes that the red-haired boy that he fought so many times before was actually not a boy, but a girl. The lowly knows about the story as well, and asks Ray whether this is the classless guy who defeated her when she was young, as she always thought that the story was a myth. Ray, however, is still stuck on that loss and challenges Errol to a match immediately. The fight starts and Ray immediately uses the twin slash attack, which Errol thinks he can counter, but to his surprise, Ray's slashes blast through his own and hit him straight in the chest. This confuses him, but Ray reveals that she has the Power Swordsman class, which is why she is able to use a sword that is 5 times heavier than a normal sword, which means that she has 5 times the power in each sword strike. Errol is impressed by the fact that she has still retained her speed even after using a heavier sword, but that speed is nothing in front of his own speed. The next time she attacks, he creates an after image of himself, which distracts Ray while he appears behind her and hits her in the back. Ray is confused and tries again, but the result is the same. She can't believe that Errol is using a technique which is only used by the most advanced level swordsmen, while Errol realizes that she is too tanky to take down with his normal attacks. Ray also knows this and tries to end the fight with her heavy blows, but Errol uses his mother's signature counter, which brings Ray to her knees, and the fight is over just like that. With that, the lowly's demeanor changes completely, and she welcomes him once again to their guild, and tells him that their guild is in crippling debt right now. To get out of debt, they will have to enter the tournaments and fight as a 3-man group against other guilds who will have all 5 members in a team. Errol, however, is excited at the prospect of fighting against strong opponents and looks forward for the opportunity to hone his skills even more. The next morning, Errol wakes up in his own room in a new bed which now belongs to him. It takes him a little while to remember what all has happened since he arrived here. He now belongs to the same legendary guild which his mom worked with as well, which is a big thing for him, so he decides not to let her down and make this guild great again. He freshens up and walks into the living room where the lowly and Ray are both already up, chatting by the fire about the upcoming tournaments. Lowly immediately grabs Errol into the conversation, claiming that the tournament is going to start next week, and since they now have 3 members instead of 2, they are eligible to take part in the tournament as well. She tells Errol that it's going to be super hard since it will be an elimination-style tournament with one-on-one matches, but every guild will probably have 5 members, which will put them at a huge disadvantage, so they must defeat more than 1 opponent each if they want to survive even the first round. The lowly is pretty optimistic though, claiming that it should still be fine since their guild already has 2 B-rank swordsmen, so unless and until they don't end up fighting in a rank swordsman, they should be equally matched in the fights. Errol is a little new to the concept and asks what exactly these ranks mean. The lowly explains that there are 5 total ranks from A to D, where it is the highest rank achievable, and out of 20 swordsmen in Brescia, only 20 are deemed to be a rank, whereas D rank is the rank of a complete beginner who only knows how to hold a sword. She proudly claims that both her and Ray are B rank swordsmen themselves, and since Errol managed to defeat Ray in a straight fight, that means he is also a B ranked swordsman just like them. Considering that they have 3 B ranked swordsmen, they should have a good chance fighting the starting rounds at least. With that, the lowly goes into the kitchen, leaving Errol to his thoughts. While Ray was leaving though, he grabs her and asks about her abilities as a power swordsman. She still seems to be annoyed by her loss yesterday, but replies that one of her abilities is to harden up her outer mana shield to protect her from most of the low-powered attacks. Errol thinks about it for a while, wondering how exactly can he learn such a valuable technique when suddenly he comes up with an idea. He tells Ray to hit him with her sword still sheathed. Ray tells him that she is not interested, but Errol grabs her hand, pleading with her to do it. But Ray seems to be getting the wrong idea, thinking that Errol is in some kinky but she is not completely opposed to the idea and tells him that maybe they should start with something more normal. Errol doesn't respect the baddie in front of him, realizing that they are both thinking different things, and clears it up that he wants her to hit him so he can learn how to use the skill to harden up her mana protection shield, which would be the most effective when fighting against multiple attackers, as you are more likely to get hit in such situations. She is shocked by this and asks whether he has gone insane, since skills are only given by the divine grace of the goddess and is something which cannot be learned. But Errol is an atheist now and tells her to shut her trap since he already learned skills like Twin Blade Slice and Instant Transmission. This shuts Ray up, who gives in and decides to try it out once. They go into the training ground where she hands him her sword, warning that her sword is 5 times heavier than any normal sword, and without the brute strength skill, Errol will never be able to swing it. But Errol once again shuts up the feminist by grabbing her sword, unsheathing it and swinging it with surprising grace and ease. Ray is again left speechless, asking how the hell is he able to do all this while being classless and without any skills. Errol replies that whatever he has learned through dedication and daily practice. He vows to match their talent by pure hard work and effort. This changes Ray's heart, and she apologizes for her comments before taking back the sword and agreeing to the training, but warning him that she won't be holding back. Errol agrees and tries to flirt, but that moment has passed, and the baddie smacks him in the face with her sheathed sword. A little while later, the lowly comes running down to the training ground, breathless and stressed, and tells Errol and Ray that she just found out which guild they are up against, and it's not good news. She tells them that the group they are up against is none other than the members of the top guild Black Blade, which has over 8 ranked swordsmen, led by their leader Geo, who is known to be as vicious as a viper. But the lowly has no plans of backing down either, and with a fiery speech tells them that they will do their best to defeat their candidates. She then looks down at Errol, who is down on the ground after being battered by Ray during the training session. The lowly asks whether Errol is dead, but Ray replies that they are just doing some special training. But the lowly thinks that Ray is just venting out her stress on the newbie. Errol finally gets up, claiming that he is hungry after getting beaten up so much and wants some grub. A week flies by during the training, and finally the day of the competition arrives. People from all over the country gather at the Coliseum, discussing the match, while Errol is completely blown by how huge the venue actually is. The lowly overhears people claiming that the Dragon Fangs crashed and burned, which flares her temper. But Ray manages to stop her. Errol realizes that people also gamble here, putting money on which teams are going to win, and the lowly tells him that currently the odds in their fight are 20-1. Errol claims that it's pretty impressive, but lowly shouts at him to shut up since it means no one in the entire city believes that they can win against the Black Blade Guild. But this can also be a blessing in disguise, since if they manage to win, they can get away with loads of money from a single match. Ray tries to calm her down, but she is too far gone, as with a fire burning in her eye. She claims that they have to win this match no matter what, because if they lose, there will be no guild anymore, and to make sure that they become super rich after their match, she has taken a loan by putting the guild house as a collateral, so if they win, their lives will be changed forever, and no one would talk about them as a crappy guild which used to be good. Ray asks what if they lose though, and the lowly replies that it doesn't even matter, cause if they lost, they would have lost everything anyways. Suddenly, she gets called out by a guy who turns out to be none other than Geo, the leader of the Black Blade Guild, who starts belittling the lowly, and explains that it was him who pulled a few strings to make it so the very first match is between their guilds. It's going to be an easy fight for them, which they are bound to win, and alongside that they can completely diminish the last embers of the guild, which used to be the best once upon a time. He tells her not to worry though, as if she manages to win, that would mean that she has the best guild. But that would only happen if she manages to defeat their rank swordsman. But with a classless loser in their team, it doesn't look likely. With that, he laughs at his own ingenuity and bids them good luck before walking off. Soon they enter the arena where Errol realizes that Geo himself doesn't seem to be fighting and wonders whether that increases their chances of winning. But Ray tells him that their entire team is ranked, so it doesn't matter. Plus, their current lineup seems to be more aggressive than usual. Finally, the time for battle arrives, and the announcer introduces the contestants. From the side of Black Blades, a green-haired boy with the Fencer class is sent forward, who haughtily declares that he will defeat the entire opposing team. While the commentator gets surprised when he sees that from the side of Dragon Fangs, Errol the classless swordsman is going to fight. The Fencer boy seems disinterested since it wouldn't matter how quickly he defeats a classless idiot, but decides to do it anyways since then he can match up against the girls. The match starts, and within seconds, the Fencer bloke dashes and stabs Errol through the chest, surprising everyone with his speed. But while Loli gets worried about Errol, Ray tells her to look carefully, as it turns out that it was simply Errol's shadow. The Fencer seems surprised, but it doesn't faze him, and he turns around and lunges again, only to find another after image. He realizes that this is not going to be over as quick as he would have hoped as he gets surrounded by images of Errol, but it doesn't matter to him as he plans to use his speed to stab them all. The after images all attack at once, and the Fencer slashes through them all, only to get stabbed by the real Errol, who managed to produce 3 after images, which is supposed to be really difficult. The Fencer falls to the ground, and the match is over just like that. Errol claims that his mother used to practice with him while using 5 images at once, and that was her going easy. The commentator is shocked as the public erupts with cheers for the classless candidate. He realizes that even though he tried the exact same technique as the Fencer boy, his wasn't as refined, which means he would have to work upon it even more. The next match Errol faces is against a dual wielder who pushes on the attack with a constant barrage of sword strikes. But Errol manages to block them all before using the twin slash attack to take his opponent down. With 2 down, the next opponent he faces turns out to be a reverse grip dagger wielder, who is more careful in his step and uses a bunch of martial arts techniques alongside his blade. But that was of no use, since Errol is too fast for him and confuses him with the after images before striking him down from behind. Ray and Loli are both shocked by the fact that this man just defeated 3 ranked swordsmen without breaking a sweat in record time, which actually fills the Loli with hopes of actually winning the match. The next match turns out to be a little more difficult since he is matched up against a shield swordsman who are known to be tough, and since Errol can't land any critical hits, he is forced to dance around and slowly wear down his protection bit by bit. His opponent screams at him that he can't possibly be a classless person, but Errol replies that whatever he has achieved it's through sheer hard work and nothing else. The brute tells him that hard work won't take him very far when up against talent, as he rushes forward with his shield bash skill. But Errol manages to use one of his mother's signature technique of foresight as he predicts his enemy's movements and manages to kick the shield down. With that, he uses the technique he learned from his last opponent, the martial arts guy, and kicks the brute in the stomach. He then picks up the shield and starts moving forward. The brute gets enraged and tries to attack, but Errol manages to parry before dashing forward and using the same shield bash to destroy his opponent. People start rioting and calling him a liar who isn't disclosing his rank and class. So the organizers bring in his class ID towards the magic crystal ball and broadcast live that he indeed is a classless person. With that out of the way, the next opponent is announced who seems to be different. This swordsman is named Masamune, and he turns out to be of the samurai lineage from the east with a curved sword called a katana. Before Masamune even takes his sword out, Errol senses the danger and gets ready, knowing that this fight won't be as easy as the others. He realizes that Masamune is planning to use his ultimate skill, and like a snake is waiting to strike. But Errol is curious, so he moves forward, putting himself in danger. The moment he enters the swordsman's range, Masamune snaps out his sword towards Errol, but somehow Errol is faster and disappears behind him. Masamune is shocked, but Errol tells him that he genuinely is the fastest person he has seen in the city, but unfortunately for him, his own mother was much faster, so he is used to it. With that, he uses the Sword Princess's ultimate skill, stabbing his enemy multiple times, defeating him. With that, everyone is shocked into silence as the supposed weakest member of the weakest guild just clean sweeped the strongest members of the strongest guilds. Errol walks off towards Ray and the Loli, feeling content about the fact that they should have earned enough money to keep the guild going. That evening, when they return back to the guild house, They immediately started celebrating with drinks all around. Errol was still shocked at the fact that the loli was old enough to drink, but she claimed that she is a grown woman. Even if she looks a little small, she still can't believe that Errol single-handedly defeated 5 ranked swordsmen of the best guild in the country all alone. She decides that she must try to woo him as he is her ticket to get out of poverty and obscurity. She tries to ask his hand in marriage, claiming that she can fulfill all his desires. But Errol is a true Sigma and rejects her outright, claiming that he would prefer someone like Ray instead. This immediately makes Ray blush as she gets up from her seat, yelling at Errol to stop saying shit like that, just because he wants to turn Loli down. But Errol was seriously considering it. He asks why she would think that he is making fun of her, and she replies that when they were young, he called her a man during the sword fight. She claims that anyone who met her has said that she has no womanly charms, but Errol can see 2 big womanly charms right there in front of him and begs to differ. Loli realizes that Ray has absolutely no idea what her biggest strength is and how exactly she could use it, so she doesn't really need to worry about her. With that, she starts rubbing Errol's legs, claiming that he must be tired from all the fighting during the day, and tells him to meet her in the bedroom. Ray immediately gets embarrassed, telling Loli to stop saying weird things, but the Loli smiles slyly, claiming that she is just going to give him a well-deserved massage after a tiring day. To her surprise though, Errol replies that he would rather have a massage from Ray. His idea of a massage was getting pummeled to a pulp by Ray in the training ground as he tries to master the reinforcement magic that Ray uses so effortlessly thanks to her class and skills. Loli watches from the balcony, wondering whether Errol has any idea what a massage actually is. The constant ruckus ends up waking Loli's father, who comes down to the training ground, completely hungover, complaining about the noise, claiming that they don't need to let out the frustration of losing the tournament even before it began in the middle of the night. Loli, however, tells him that they in fact won their match, which was against the current best guild. This grabs his attention, but he thinks that the Black Blade must have sent their rank B or C newbies as cannon fodder. But Loli surprises him even more by saying that all their opponents were a tier, and not only that, but Errol defeated them all on his own without any help. This shocks her dad out of his hangover, as he looks at Errol, bruised and battered, wondering if this kid is really that strong. Loli claims that she made a bunch of bets, and because Errol clean sweeped the enemy team, she hit the jackpot, and now not only are they out of debt, but also have enough money to cover their operating costs. Her dad, however, is not so optimistic, claiming that if by some luck this kid is actually that strong, he would soon get poached by bigger, more influential and richer guilds, so she shouldn't get her hopes high. Loli tells him not to worry about that since she is soon going to marry Errol, which means that they would be bound for life. Errol announces that he is not going to do anything like that, but soon turns his attention towards her father, claiming that Loli might be a thick-headed dip, but at least she is not a loser who gives up on everything. This was a clear dig at Loli's dad, who looks at him dangerously. But Errol doesn't get the hint and continues that he should stop with his moping act and start acting more his age, since he still has one remaining hand and can wield a sword in that hand. This triggers her dad, who immediately grabs Errol by the collar, telling him to avoid speaking on subjects he has no clue about. He tells Errol that a dual-wielding swordsman who can't dual-wield is nothing but a waste of oxygen. Errol claims that he doesn't agree since he himself is a classless swordsman who is still competing and trying to rise in this world. With that, her dad pushes him away and walks back upstairs. Loli and Ray immediately come to Errol's side, asking if he is okay, and Loli apologizes for her dad's behavior while thanking Errol for speaking up. Errol claims that even after losing his arm and being washed up for so long, her dad is still incredibly strong, and it's a waste that he is refusing to use his incredible strength and experience. He thinks to himself about all the cool skills he could learn from a dual-wielding swordsman, and promises to himself that he will motivate Loli's father Rod to take up the sword once again. Loli hears about his bid to learn new skills and suggests that he take on some of the dungeons near the city. Errol is completely oblivious about dungeons, so Ray tells him that dungeons are underground caves where monsters spawn in the hundreds and the entire place is full of traps, making it one of the best places to learn new skills and level up with more real-life battle experience, which would help them during the Sword God Cup. Errol has no idea what she is talking about, so she explains that the city every year hosts a tournament where the best swordsmen in the country participate to show their skills and prove that they are the single best swordsmen in the country. Loli immediately takes out a form, and tells Errol to fill it if he wants to participate, but to Ray's horror, he rips it up right in front of them. Ray is confused and asks whether he doesn't want to participate in the contest, but Errol replies that Loli was trying to pull a fast one on him and gives him a marriage certificate to sign instead. The Loli laughs, claiming that she was just testing the waters, but Errol is done being a good boy and grabs her in a rear naked choke to teach her a lesson. The next morning, Errol wakes up to find Loli trying to assault him, but he dodges her and ties her to the bed before leaving. Later that day, they all go towards the dungeons together, where Loli explains that everyone gets to stand in the teleportation circles through which they can teleport to the dungeon level that they want, but you can only go to the levels which you have been to before. Loli claims that she has reached level 12, while Ray has reached 14. Errol immediately decides to go alongside Ray to the 14th level, but Loli claims that it doesn't work that way, and he needs to be physically present at the level to be able to go there again. That was a bummer since Errol wanted to fight the strongest monsters he could find from the outset, but the Loli tells him not to worry as she knows a really short route which will lead them to the lower floors very quickly. They agree to the plan, but Loli tries to get Errol all alone, claiming that Ray can continue her level 14 run since Errol wouldn't need 2 guides, and starts dragging him away. But Errol is not so easily manipulated and asks Ray to come with them. They enter the first floor where they are immediately attacked by 2 knights in armor. Errol draws out his sword and starts clashing with one of them while Ray takes the other one. He is surprised to notice that even after having heavy armors, the knight move with incredible agility, but it's nothing he can't deal with. So he uses his dash step and chops off the knight's head, only to realize that the entire armor is empty and is getting powered by the mana of the dungeon itself. The knight starts moving again even without its head, and Ray claims that they have no real weakness and don't feel pain either. So Errol decides to go for the legs, which works out beautifully as the magic knights collapse on the ground. Ray also deals with her opponent, claiming that they will soon regenerate so they need to move on. Before moving further though, Errol asks Loli what her class is, and she very proudly claims that she is a fencer, and promises to teach him anything he wants, in the training ground or in the bed, but Errol rejects her once again and moves on. Before entering the second level though, they hear cries of help coming from the door, and when they move closer, they find a man covered in blood, kneeling on the floor and begging for help. Ray suggests taking him above ground, but the man refuses, claiming that his friends are still inside and they got badly hurt by a booby trap. He begs them to help rescue his friends, but Loli immediately gets down to business asking for money in return for help. To her surprise, the man even pays her a good sum from the money he won gambling, but Errol senses something wrong. While walking behind the man, he notices that whenever he lost blood like that, he can't even sit on his own without holy water, let alone walk all the way back to a dangerous room. He realizes that the blood and the injuries are completely fake, but decides to keep this information to himself, just because he thinks this might lead to something interesting and fun. The man takes them to a secret room where they find a trail of blood and a puddle in the center with one singular gold coin. The sight of the coin immediately entices Loli, who goes to pick it up. When a teleport circle appears beneath them, Ray realizes that this was a setup, while the man grins at them, claiming that he got paid well to just do such an easy job. But to his surprise, the magic circle teleported him alongside the others. They all emerge on a floor which even Ray has not seen, meaning that it's even lower than the 14th floor, but no signs of strong enemies yet. The guy who pretended to be hurt was shaking from fear, as he stammered that this is supposed to be the lowest floor on the dungeon where the advanced sword god can be found. Suddenly, a knight with rainbow enchanted armor appears in front of them, but Loli refuses to believe the story of the sword god class, which everyone thought was just a myth. Errol, however, realizes the trouble that they are in and immediately pushes Loli down as the sword god sends an aerial slash so strong that it breaks the dungeon walls. Without wasting any time, the sword god attacks Errol, who barely manages to get his sword up in time, blocking the attack even though he gets shoved into the wall. He realizes that he survived that just because of the reinforcement magic training he got from Ray. He tries slashing back at his opponent, but the knight is extremely quick and uses all of the advanced moves to dash back. With that, he smiles, claiming that this is a good opportunity to test himself. This completely shocks his party while he uses the same divine step technique to close the distance and pushes on the attack, hitting the knight with a barrage of strikes which gets blocked. The knight is forced to back off, but uses a skill which causes gravity in the room to increase, forcing the others on the floor. But Errol easily maintains his stance since he has faced the same thing before when he was younger, training against his mom. He used all his strength back then just to be able to stand, so when his mom attacked, he wasn't able to do anything. But this time it's different. He uses the gold coin to nullify the attack, which creates a small opening, and Errol uses it to its full potential, Using one of his strongest abilities called Infinite Break, the knight shatters into pieces after that attack, shocking everyone present in the room. He regains his strength with some holy water, and then all of them safely exit the dungeon through the teleportation spell. Back in the bar, Rod was again drinking when he overhears a conversation between three young idiots talking about how they tricked the new members of the Dragon Fang Guild into a trap, and they are most likely never coming back. Rod walks up to them and breaks their table with a single punch, ordering them to reveal everything that they know, but he is interrupted by Jorg, who calls him a good-for-nothing drunkard. Rod immediately realizes that this must have been set up by Jorg, which means the chances of her daughter's survival are slim to none, completely broken. He lunges towards Jorg, but gets pushed aside like a peasant, while he kneels on the ground, wishing he could save his little girl. But a sudden voice from the door catches his attention, and he turns around to see Loli. Alongside Errol and Ray enter the tavern, talking about how hungry they are. Loli notices her dad and the ugly Jorg, but gets surprised when Rod hugs her tightly, thanking God for making sure her daughter was safe. Ray calls Jorg out, claiming that they got all the information out of his crony, who confessed that it was all Jorg's plan, but just like any politician, he straight up refuses to admit it, claiming that everyone is responsible for their own safety in the dungeons, and Errol thinks that it is a valid point. Rod tells Jorg that he won't get away with this, but Jorg simply calls him a drunkard, washed-up piece of trash and moves out of the room, while Errol wonders what new tricks he will have to deal with now. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.